Hey guys, Gary here, aka Gaz-D-Projects. We're going to be looking at the headset, how we service it, the components, everything goes together, how it works, and we're also going to be looking at servicing the hubs on the wheels themselves. We might also have a look at the chain, how we clean the chain and lube up the chain, that kind of thing. So I think what we'll do is we'll get cracking. We will have a look at this headset. Take a look at the 5mm on top. So all we need to do is undo the stem bolt on top and on the sides here, and then we'll release the fork. This is a interference or compression fit style loading fork and headset. So all we need to do is, in actual fact, when I take this off, the handlebar is going to have to hang somewhere. So if I get like a little bungee or something, might have it hanging up here somewhere. Little bungee cord. Let's have a look. Let's see. So here's one here. You think I would have had this prepared earlier? Okay, so bungee cord. So keep that for holding the handlebars together. 5mm on top. Okay, 5mm. Okay. Just gonna crack this off. 4mm on the sides. Sometimes stems have markings on them as to regards Newton meter torques. I think in this instance the top 5mm is about 8 to 10 Newton meters, and it's probably a little bit less on the smaller 4mm, maybe 6 to 8, 6 Newton meters, something like that. I have the wheel off already because I've stripped down the hub. I'm going to have a look at that later. What you want to make sure is that when you're loosening this off, you just want to make sure you've got a hold of the forks itself so it doesn't drop onto the floor, obviously. So we will just take this off like so. Just make sure these are loose. Take off our 5mm on top. A little bit of corrosion on top of the bolt there. It's always a good idea to just put a little bit of grease on the thread there and on the head. You can see there's a little bit of corrosion where water ingress has got in there. Not the end of the world, but we can clean it up and put a bit of grease on later on. What we'll do is we'll take the stem off the handlebars like so. Try and lie them down here somewhere. This is where our bungee cord comes into play. I'll use that in a minute. Take off your spacers on top here. So here's 1, 2. The spacers, you don't need to worry about the order of the spacers themselves. They go on fine. The cone and the rest of the components hereafter, try and remember the way things go. There should be a compression washer here. We'll just need to release that like so, cone shape. There's a little split in it. And the reason why it has a split in it is because it's a compression ring. Most of the time these are steel, aluminium, carbon. This is kind of a carbon and plastic kind of type, and this is a compression fit. So what happens is when it goes back on and the fork is loaded, that gap closes and puts pressure on the cartridge bearing below. Just take that off, and then we'll just slide the fork out itself. Okay, you can of course remove the cable from the actual e-brake system itself. We might do just to stop any moving or falling or anything. That we might just use a bungee cord just to hold everything in place. Keep things nice and held in place. So just stop it from falling. You can put a bit of cloth here as well to protect the frame. Okay, so this is a cartridge style. Where's my screwdriver? Cartridge style bearing system in the headset. Okay, you can take these out. Actually, why don't we take them out? Let's take one of them out. Okay, so we can use our little rocket tool. We can go this way. The flare is a little bit small for this, but I can make do. Should have a little rubber mallet knocking around. Here we go. Simultaneously hold the frame securely and then just hit a little blow. It may just pop off, so watch out, cameraman Killian. There we go. And it actually landed in here. Couldn't make that up if I tried. Okay, so we got our little rocket tool. I'll give you guys a view of this. Okay, so this is what's known as a cartridge style bearing on a headset. You can see the little bearings on the inside there. My screwdriver, torch. On the inside there, the yellow grease, probably original grease from the factory. There's a small bit of corrosion there. See the little kind of rusting on the end there, and that's probably due to water ingress. And we might look at the seal and see what condition that's in. Maybe that would have caused that getting in there. We will of course clean this up and re-grease. So yeah, there's one on top and then there's one on the bottom. When you're putting in new ones of these, new bearings, it's always a good idea to use a reaming tool on the face here. And what the reaming tool does is it actually removes material from the face. And why would you want to do something like that? Well, I'll tell you why. You want to remove this material to make sure that this surface is as square and as flat and as level as can be. This basically ensures that when you put the new bearing in, that it's seating correctly and nicely on the frame, and then you're not getting any form of cross thread. What I'm doing here is just checking to see what condition this is in, which is actually nice and square. So if I put the torch here and that torch was to come through on this side here, so like that, there's a gap, that would indicate that it's not square, but in this case it's perfectly square. There's no need to ream this. The other thing as well is, and obviously there's one on the bottom there, another cartridge on the bottom, and that's self-contained and sealed. Some of them are slightly open like this one, and you can re-grease it. What we can do is we can service it, clean it up, get things back together again. So what we'll do is we'll get our degreaser and we'll spray a little bit of degreaser, a little bit of tissue maybe as well, get a bit of a station going. So what you want to do is you want to just clean up things, make sure there's no dirt, ingress, anything like that. But the bearings themselves, so if you want to step in here a little bit, cameraman clean, and all we're doing is we're just using a degreaser. This is just chain cleaner, basically the same thing, degreaser, and we're just going to spray the inside all in here. We're going to remove the old grease, any dirt or grime from the bearing itself. Let's get a little bit more tissue there. And we're just going to clean it up like so. We might have a quick look at its operation as well. So just clean it up. Okay, so cartridge style, inner race rotates and moves on the bearings while the outer stays static. Okay, cone shape facilitate going into the headset itself. Bearings on the inside. Lovely little design, not quite like the old style with the bearings going around the outer edge of the crown race and the upper race. These are a lovely little design. Don't be afraid to be a little bit liberal with the grease. Going back in again. Okay, so just pour on some grease there with your finger. Make sure you push that grease into the bearings. And make sure that it's nicely lubricated up. A little bit more there. And once you're happy that there's enough grease on the bearing itself, you can of course reinstall or reinstate the bearing back into the headset. Now if you're in a position to go and buy brand new sealed cartridge bearings and ream your head, you know, more power to you, but this is actually in not bad condition. It can be used again. So that's nicely greased up. I'll just put that down, clean my hands off a little bit. What we'll do is we'll put this back in a few minutes. I might just remove the bottom one as well, actually. The bottom bearing. Just gives that a clean and a grease also as well. Just watch yourself there. When we come around this way, we can get an angle on the bottom of the bearing itself. Okay. Rubber mallet. Why do we use a rubber mallet? Okay, we don't cause damage. Rubber. When we hit it, it's not going to cause any damage. That's why we use a rubber mallet. Okay, so we're just going to pop. The flare itself is not the correct size for this headset tube. We can make do. So we'll just cover it here like this. With a few little taps. And pull it off. Okay. So more stubborn. There we go. Same again. We'll have a look at this one and see what kind of condition this is in. So if we take a look inside, we can see our bearings and we can see the old yellow grease. Small bit of corrosion once again, and this is on the bottom of the headset itself, and in some instances there should be a seal to stop that, but on this one I don't think there is one. We'll check that later when we're reinstalling. So we're just going to clean this again and we're going to re-grease. Again, so we'll just spray this. Okay, and then we're just going to clean once again. And once we're happy that everything is clean, the other obvious thing to do as well is when we take these off, we're checking to see that there's no damage and that the bearing itself is obviously, you know, working. There's no resistance, there's no kind of rubbing or pitting or anything like that. This seems to be fine. There's no obvious signs of damage anywhere. So once you're happy it's clean on the inside, we're just going to reload it up with some grease again. Nice liberal amount there. Make sure you get your finger and push that grease right the way in, all the way around, and this will of course give plenty of lubrication to the bearings, and it'll give us a bit more longer life in the bearing itself. And you have to remember that the cartridge bearings themselves, they take up a lot of load. Okay, so there's preload on the fork itself, and preload goes onto the bearing, and that's to facilitate obviously all the forces that the forks themselves take. So when you're going uphill, downhill, you're loading the front fork. When you're turning, you're steering, there's lateral, there's axial kind of loading on the frame. And these bearings, they do a lot, so it's always important to service them, keep them clean. They do a lot of work, so it pays to look after these, even replace them if needs be. So why don't we just stick these back into the headset, and then we can have a look at reinstalling the headset itself, and we'll just talk about a few little kind of features of the headset itself and go from there. So what I'll do is I'll put the bottom one on first and then the top one. Okay guys, now that we have the cartridge bearings back into the headset and greased up, we're just going to reinstall the fork and the handlebars and stem. So what we'll do is we'll just undo this for a second. Try and get our fork out of the mess that it is. Yeah. Let's try and get that over here. Okay, so on the bottom of the fork itself, right here, is the crown race. Okay, and the crown race is responsible for receiving the bearings and loading the bearings on the cartridge bearing itself. Is there anything that we want to pay attention to when we are servicing headset forks? Yes, there most definitely is, and the crown race is definitely one of them. So if we give this a quick little clean, we'll have a look, and what we're looking for is any kind of signs of damage, pitting, wear on the crown itself, and this will of course affect the operation of the cartridge bearing. The ball bearings will feel that in there. So we'll have a look. That's actually fairly clean there now. So we come right in on that. Let's get the torch on again here, and we can see that it looks like there's relatively even wear the whole way around. A little bit high spots there, but other than that, I'll be relatively happy with that. These do come off. There's a tool for getting them off. There's no need to take this one off. It's actually fine and serviceable, so we can re-grease that and reinstall it. The crown race itself, as I said, it supports the ball bearings and the cartridge itself in its operation for obviously turning and loading weight and stuff on the fork itself. The term race, which I believe is no longer used. I know you heard it here first on Gaz-D-Projects. It's actually called a mating surface or a seat nowadays. So that's a new one for you. So what we will do is we'll just give a little bit of grease on the bottom of this, and we'll reinsert back into our headset. Okay, and then we're just going to wipe off any kind of excess that we see. Okay, just put that back in. Okay. So that spring washer I was talking about earlier on is very important. Not only does it center the fork stem, it also gives a little bit of a preload. Okay, that's in there nicely. You want to make sure that's seated in there. Sometimes you might hear a little click, and what you want to do is you want to make sure that it's seated squarely the whole way around, like so. And then we want to reinstall our components. So this is in effect a seal and washer in one. So the seal is on the outside, rubber seal right there, and then the washer is on the inner. And it's designed in such a way that it sits over our compression washer, and then when we put our spacers on top, it actually loads the bearing itself. Okay. Getting ahead of myself there, I think. They just pop back on again. The order of the washers doesn't really matter. They're, you know, the size depicts, you know, your spacing for your stem. So then we want to get our handlebars and stem back on top. Just throw that on the ground for a sec. Slips back on top, and you can see the beauty of this is that it's a compression fit. It loads the bearings up. What you do is tighten the stem and the top bolt. Okay, bolt back in the top. Actually, while we're here, a bit of grease on that bolt, just to stop that water ingress from getting in there and corroding it even more. There we go. Off the excess, and we'll just tighten that up. A little pinch for now. Position your handlebars. You can do the final squaring up of the handlebar and the forks when the wheel is on. Just make sure you're 100% happy. Change that down a bit. fairly close there. Just give that a little pinch. And then once you've given your fork and stem a bit of a load there, you can just check the motion in the fork. If there's any kind of resistance, you've probably gone too tight, you probably put too much load on. So it should be nice and smooth, no resistance. Once you're happy with that, you can then tighten your bottom bolts into the stem here. And once that's done, then we can of course torque up our bolts. Pinch. And this stem actually has markings on it in regards to torque. The top one is somewhere in the region of 8 to 10 Newton meters. These smaller ones are probably a little bit less, maybe 6 Newton meters. And we can of course torque those up. Let's check that again. Okay, clean up here. Okay, so torque range. We're going to set this to 10 Newton meters. I've done this on a previous video before. Okay, so when you're finished with torque wrench, always zero it out. It maintains the calibration. So what we want is 10 Newton meters. Okay, so we're just going to go all the way up until we hit that sweet spot. And there's 10. Lock the bottom locking nut, and you're good to go. Try and get a solid fluid motion on the torque wrench itself. Torque this. We're just going to torque this bolt up. Somewhere in the region of 8 to 10 Newton meters. I set it to 8 just to be on the cautious side. So remember, this bolt also loads. So I'm just going to go around. There's our torque. We reach torque on the top bolt. We'll just check the operation of the bearing itself. It's just grand, and then just the stems then themselves need to be pinched, and we can also torque them. I'll torque down in 2 seconds. Oh, sorry, 4 mil bottom stem bolts. We'll pinch, and then we will torque them up also. Okay, let's check this. 4 mil here. Do. Okay, so we get that headset. Drop it down to 6. There we go. So you weren't far off there. Okay, as I said, we're finished with our torque wrench. Oh, zero back. Maintains calibration. Okay guys, so we're going to service the hubs themselves, the wheels. So you can see I have the wheel, actually I just got the wheel here, we'll have a look. So I have the wheel like so. I've removed the axle. And obviously degreased the inner part of the hub, and then the caps themselves can be removed, and you put new ones in when you are putting in new bearings and you're servicing. There's a little puller that takes them out, but in this instance we're just going to remove the bearings, clean up the axle, clean the bearings, re-grease, quick service, and put it back together again, and we can put it back onto the fork. I've already removed the bearings. They're sitting in this little container I have here in some degreaser. It's in there for about an hour or so. What we're going to do then is we're just going to take them out. So, I have to drown the place. Okay. Okay. There's our bearings. That's to one side. So once the bearings are clean and you're happy there's no damage to them, we can reuse them again. These ones are fine. These are actually really good condition. Some components. So the axle itself obviously has a hollow hole to receive the quick release, which is right over here. Quick release. Obviously the quick release goes through the axle, like so. You put the wheel back on. Axle is nice and clean. There's no signs of damage or pitting here on the bearing cone itself. Fairly happy with that. Nice even wear there. Where's my little torch? See, will the camera pick that up? So in the center there on the cone itself, there's a nice solid central line the whole way around. That indicates a nice even bearing wear. So that was preloaded correctly and was running nicely. Okay. So all that's involved then is ensuring that our seals, our rubber seals, are in good nick. There's no tears, no rips, and these can be reused again because they're in very good condition actually. And obviously these rubber seals just stop dirt, water and ingress from getting into the bearings and the axle itself. So it's always important to change these if you can and make sure they're in good nick. So without further ado, what we'll do is we'll grab the wheel and we'll just lie it on the vise here and we'll try and reinstall our bearings. Some grease. When you're taking the bearings out, right, try and use something that's magnetic, like a magnetic screwdriver, or you see guys with what do you call those things that women pluck their eyebrows with?
Tweezers.
Tweezers, there we go. Tweezers. Yeah, so tweezers, but you can use a magnetic screwdriver or a magnetic tip. Like this one here. Very good. Makes life a lot easier. So make sure that's nice and clean on the inside there. There's no rust, damage, anything like that. Clean it out real good. And we can just basically put our bearings back in. I'm just going to grab some grease. Hopefully that stays there. Grab some grease and we're just going to put grease inside the bearing area here, the inner race. We'll do the same the opposite side. Okay, back down again. Try and use something flat. We can pop our bearings back in. The grease being in there will help. Actually, sometimes the bearings can pop off onto the floor or down into the hub, so just give your fingers a little bit of grease. So, and just pop the bearing in. Same again, work your way the whole way around so you can rotate the wheel itself. Okay, see, can we get another bearing there? Okay. Plenty of grease keeps these bearings nicely seated. All the way around. Okay, probably one or two short there. So just add a few more. Okay, so getting very close there now. Oh, and we've lost our first solder. Okay, let's have a look. Pretty close at that actually. So how many bearings have we got left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so one short. Okay. Okay. Once you got to that stage, pop the axle in. Rotate it over. It will be harder to get the bearings in this side. The reason why I've put the axle in first is because I want to make sure that the bearings are seated in that cup area. Okay. So once I'm happy that they're seated, take the axle back out, put the bearings on the opposite side, put the axle back in. Okay. So let's have a look. So there comes set axle. And they're all positioned in there nicely. They won't fall out because the grease is holding them together. Reinstall our bearings on the other side. There's 1, 2, 3, so on. This is probably the stage of the video where we fast forward. Spare you guys the pain of me putting these bearings in here. Ball bearings, I think they're about 3 mil. Okay. One on that side as well. It's trying to slip down, just push it back in. Once we're happy they're all in there, I'll try and get the axle in. Okay, cone goes on top. And then I just want to make sure I kind of set a little bit of a preload on this axle. We can put the rest of the components, the washer and the nut back on. Use a little pinch. So what I normally do is I kind of slightly over tighten to load, and I bring it back just to give me my ideal axle tension and load. So there's no inflow there. Let's go again there. A little bit. Okay, let's try that. See how far off are we? Okay, so that's nice. No rubbing, nice and smooth. And we have our newly serviced hub. Now it's pretty much the same process for the back wheel. You can of course change out the cassette or change the inner cassette and the hub and just grease inside there. But we kind of get the idea as to how to service a hub. So we put our axle back inside. We can of course throw the wheel back onto the bike itself. Am I getting ahead of myself? Yep, I am. Rubber seals. Rubber seals. Okay. Just push your rubber seal back on and over. It's cone shaped, so make sure the The lower end basically is sitting outward. So that we have this sitting on. Okay guys, so now that our wheel is back onto the forks, one thing you want to pay attention to is how the rim sits in between the forks, so that it's sitting square. This is adjusted through the axle. On the axle, so the locking nuts and the cones have to be centered correctly on the axle, so you have equal length of axle on the left side and the right hand side, and this gives us our square central point for the fork. It's nice and greased now, she's flying away there nicely. There's a small little buckle in this wheel, which I will address later on, and that will sort that out. We can put the brakes back on. What's left to do now basically on the bike is to just clean up the chain and the pulley wheels, jockey wheels on the rear mech. Clean the chain up, lube it back up correctly, and go through the motions of doing that. So we'll just do that now in one moment. The thing to note here is with chains, we want to make sure that the chain itself is not obviously worn or in bad condition. We want to remove all the dirt away from the chain, and then we want to lube the chain. We don't have any excess oil on the chain. That's also a bad thing. The other thing as well is I see guys when they're washing their bikes down, they will use soapy water, and what happens is the water can get in to the chain, and what happens is it gets into the rollers right in here, and the water can sit in under the roller and over time can corrode, cause stiffness in the chain link itself and problems for you down the road. So if you're in a position, try not to use water anywhere near your chain. You can get good products like Muck Off for cleaning the frame down. You can spray it on, clean the frame, try not to get any water near the chain. So what we'll do is we'll clean this up with a degreaser, cloth and a couple of brushes, and then we'll loop the chain back up again and we'll wipe off any excess. So we'll get a cloth, we'll get a bit of degreaser, and we'll give that a go. Okay, so if I come over this side and we take a look, what we can do is we will have to take off the pulley wheel and jockey wheel on the rear mech and clean them up, but in the meantime we can of course spray our chain. Okay. Spray our chain and we'll give that a clean and a scrub like Niagara Falls. Okay, so we'll just get a little Allen key just to take those pulley wheels out. Size at 8, it looks like a 2 or 3 mil. Over here. Okay, let's have a look. So we just want to unwind this. Take this off. You'll find that dirt and grease and crud gets into the jockey wheel. In actual fact, this one has to be changed. I'm not happy with that profile. There's a lot of wear there. I'm going to have to change this out, but in the meantime we'll clean it up just to show you the process involved in cleaning the chain and the jockey wheel up. I'll check the top pulley wheel, see what condition that's in, and of course the bolt is always on the opposite side. Try and get in out there. Probably get it from this side. We bring the mech down a bit actually. Don't be afraid to get your hands dirty, guys. Get that in there. Try and loosen off the legs. pulley. Clean everything back up. And the whole idea of cleaning your mech and your chain is that when it comes to gear shifting and indexing, that it works much crisper, much nicer, and a much more pleasurable ride. I'll just unwind that there. There we go. Try not to lose parts. Okay, so you'll see. So that's actually not bad. The top pulley wheel is not bad. Profile wise, it could do a change. And yeah, we'll order 2 new ones of these and change them out, but we'll get them cleaned up and show you the process involved in cleaning this and servicing it up. So what we'll do is we'll just take these up to the bench and clean them up and grease them up. So let's have a look over here for a sec. Stick them up here. Some tissue on top, take out the caps and the rollers. Roller. Okay, get them in spray again. Sides. Okay. So what we're looking here, guys, is now these are worn, so they will have to be replaced. We're just going to clean them up. I'm going to take a look at the roller bearings and grease them up and just put our caps back on. If there's any dirt on the inside, we'll have a look and see. Taking it out. Okay, so here we go. Little bits of crud in the inside there. So we just want to make sure that we get that out. Okay, same the opposite side. Make sure we get that out. Bit there on the end. Okay. Take one at a time. Give them a clean with a decent rag. Okay. Okay, there's one cleaned. The next one on. Really good scrub. Make sure there's no dirt on the teeth. And then the roller bearings themselves. Take a look at them. Try to set it away. So here's our roller bearings. So once they're nice and clean, we can slot them back in. Get a bit of grease for that as well. So that is in. There. These. And then just our aluminium caps. As clean as possible. And then put in some grease. So, see if you could take out our little roller around there for a sec. Okay, caps go back on. Just to stop that cap from coming off, just use a little bit of extra grease. Okay, like so. Back on this side. Cap back on. Just clean off any excess. Okay, and then that's good to go back on. Nice and rolling free there. Same process with the second one. We'll get this done, we'll put them back onto the rear mech and we'll have a look at cleaning down our chain and we'll lube it up then. Okay guys, so now that we have our pulley wheels all cleaned down and greased back up again, we can reinstall them later. I've just got the top one on here for now. What we want to do is just make sure that we're cleaning our cassette the whole way around. So my bucket under there. Clean in here. Make sure our chain gets a little bit of as well. We get our scrubbing tool. Get in behind the cassette. Make sure there's no dirt or grease in there. All the way around. There's nothing in there. It's fine. And then in between the cassettes themselves, got a lot of dirt in there. Just clean that out. And we have the wire, the brushes on the end then just to clean things up even nicer on the cassette itself. Okay, and then the chain. Give the chain a good clean. What you can do as well is you can actually just take the chain off. Probably easier instead of getting dirt and all over your frame and marks. So take the chain off and let it sit in a degreaser maybe overnight. Clean it up, put it back onto the bike, and that would be the way to go. That would be the correct way to give it a good clean. Okay. Once all this is cleaned up, let's get the frame a quick clean down there as well. Okay. We can lube the chain back up again. Now there's many different types of oils that you can get. Chains, depends on sometimes weather conditions. If it's very warm out, you can use like a dry lube. Wet lubes are great too. Different brands, of course. Personally, like a 3-in-1 oil is perfectly good, especially for Irish kind of weather. It's kind of really your own preference. So yeah, once that's cleaned up, we'll put the pulley and jockey wheel back on, and then we can give it a lube there. So I'll just put this on there now. So not too tight, the pulley wheel doesn't move. Just a little pinch. It's nice and free there, nearly greased up. Just make it clean down there as well. Okay, just check the opposite side of this top plate. Okay, that's grand. Get a bit more cloth there and just give that a bit of a clean, especially here. Use a little muck off just to clean things up. That's sticker residue on top there of the bar. Put a joint sticker or something there. That's the adhesive. Okay. So once you're happy things are relatively clean, I'm just going to lube up the chain. So I'll just grab some 3-in-1 oil. Grab some here. Yeah. And all you're going to do is you're just going to make sure that the chain goes the right way, Gary. There you go. The chain itself is getting lubed. Okay. We're happy with that, and then we're just going to have a look at the cassette. Okay, and the bottom one right here. Okay, and we're just going to clean things up. Some nice clean rags. Now we've plenty of oil on the chain here, so all the oil's got into the rollers, the outside of the plates, and there's a little bit of wear on that chain. We will change that down the road, but for now it's fine. So we'll clean up this, wipe off the excess. We will wipe off the excess on the cassette in behind, clean up the whole bike and frame, and then what we'll do is we'll run through all the gears. We'll check our gearing or indexing and make sure we're shifting nicely. There's no witches. Clean the rim as well also. So yeah, I'll get cracking on that, and then we'll see how it shifts. Okay guys, so now that we have the chain cleaned up, the cassette cleaned up, and we've got the chain lubed, we can take a look now and see what kind of condition it's in. So we can see that it's nice and clean. The mech is clean, the cassette's clean. We've oiled the cassette and chain with 3-in-1, and then if we try and cycle through the gears, so there's first gear, there's second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, back up. That's quite nice. Bring her back down to fifth, or your fourth, fifth, and we go up the front railer here. Go up the top, nice. Down again, nice. back up again, back up again, and down. So I'll be fairly happy with that. That actually just brings me on, reminds me of an issue I had with the front derailleur. I wasn't happy with the second ring. So it turns out I took this apart, the pivot points were bent slightly on the inside and a little bit seized, so I straightened that out, cleaned it up, re-lubed it, and while I was there for a good measure I put in a brand new cable and of course serviced the front trigger. And you can see through its operation that it's working 100% now, hunky-dory, and everything is perfect. So I'd be relatively happy with that. We're all indexed up, we're oiled up, we're lubed, happy out, headset's good, torqued, loaded. Our hubs are done, serviced. The back one is done also. We've done that before we started filming, so that one's done. Had a look at the cassette, all hunky-dory. I will order 2 new pulley wheels for the rear mech, and that should be 100%. I'll just double check the wear on that chain. I think it is at its limit there. I might need a new chain. We might get a little few miles out of force before we have to change out the chain. That basically brings me on to talk about another little kind of surprise or excitement that I have in store for you guys. If Killian man gives me the camera, he might walk into the office where I have the surprise and we can have a look and see. Let's have a look. That is a Christmas tree. And what have we got here? Okay, so it looks like we have a vintage Raleigh. You can see that some of the parts on it are not original. The rear mech here, sorry, the rear mech, the bottom bracket is not original on this. The chain set may be, pedals definitely are not. Has the original Wiesmann single pull on the front and back. Even has braze-on fittings here. So that shows you how old this is. Could be well over 50 years plus maybe. I'm not sure if this bit of wood here is original. The previous owner may have added this himself as kind of a custom kind of a thing. So I'm kind of unsure as to what to do with the this bike itself. Do you want to take the camera back there, can you? Not sure what to do with the bike itself. Whether we try and source parts and bring it back to its former glory, or we do something entirely different with it. Maybe like a resto mod, or we just clean up the parts, get everything working and just clear the whole thing, keep the patina, keep the rust, excuse me, keep all that kind of stuff on it. Let me know guys in the comments. Let me know what do you think we should do with this. Should we restore, bring it back to its former glory, keep it all original, or do some form of resto mod? I think it's very exciting. I really like this wood piece. May not be original. Maybe you guys could help me out with that one as well. Maybe you can tell me whether this is original to Raleigh. I don't see any Raleigh markings anywhere on the frame, and they'll be indicative of Raleigh. But a bit more research, and we might try and find out that the wheels themselves they have that knurling on them on the rim, which would suggest kind of a Raleigh style. I think they're 26s by 1 3/4, is it? 26, it's higher than a 1 3/8, which kind of would be correct for a Raleigh. So we'll have to do a bit more research on that and try and find out where can we source more original parts. Obviously the handlebars are not original. The Royale seat is not original either. So it'd be good, it'd be nice basically to bring this back to its former glory, I reckon. But look, let me know what you guys think in the comments, and we can come up with some kind of a plan as to what to do with this. So guys, that pretty much leads me on to saying I hope you guys enjoyed the video covering the headset, the hubs, and servicing the chain itself. I hope you guys learned something from it, and as always, remember to please to subscribe, like, and comment, and take her handy.